Welcome back, world. In this video, we're going to chat about editing views and creating sheets in Revit. This is a series of Revit 101 intended to educate and inform my class and my students. For those who are not part of the curriculum or taking a formal class with me, hopefully this is just informational and something you can benefit from. For everybody else, buckle up and let's jump right in. You may remember in the previous versions of this series anyway, that we were using Barcelona Pavilion designed by Mies van der Rohe as the vehicle to explain and express how these different tools work. And in this particular case, I want to show you how to edit and create views for floor plans, elevations, sections, and that within those views, add dimensions and annotations. That's the meat of today's video and lecture. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, not the chat, excuse me, the comment box in YouTube, and I'll do my very best to answer them or answer them in a future video. But for my students, you have a vehicle within Canvas to ask questions and have them answered. Please remember to use that. Okay, now house cleaning out of the way, let's jump right in. So this is the model as we remember it, and remember in Revit, the out-of-box version, meaning the untailored version, they already give you a bunch of preset views, including sheets, right? But I'm going to show you how to create those things from scratch, not using the out-of-box Revit stuff, and giving you much more control over what you see and how you see it. Okay, so for the very first thing we're going to do is a floor plan. Now we do have one already, but I don't particularly like this one and the way it's set up. So I'm going to show you a different one in that, or how to create a different one that is different than these. So the first and easiest thing to do is to right-click on this one and duplicate with detailing. That's the easiest thing to do, but you can also create from scratch. So go to the View tab and select Plan Views, Floor Plan, and it's going to ask you what kind of plan you want to make. We want an architectural plan for sure, and it's going to tell you, hey, don't, this checkbox, do not duplicate existing views. You don't want to change a view you already have. In this case, we do want to duplicate, so we're going to create a level 1 floor plan, and so we hit OK, and then it looks exactly like the other one, right? But the difference is it's not blue, which means it's not on a sheet already. So we like that, we want that. So we're going to right click and we're going to rename it so we know for sure it is ours, and we're going to rename it Mies BP Floor Plan. Okay, so that stands for Mies Barcelona Pavilion Floor Plan. All right, now let's, it's going to ask us, would you like to rename corresponding level and views? And I don't want to rename the levels. I want the levels to be 1 and 2. The view is renamed, so we'll leave that. So we'll hit no, and the view will stay, but the level will stay level 1, but the floor plan will be Mies VP floor plan. Okay. The very next thing I want to show you, I don't think I've shown you this so far, but I want to explain it to you, is the notion of a scope box, and they already exist out of box, right? So the ones that Revit gives you out of box is this one, and it's called, when you select it, the properties box tells you it's called views overall. When you select this one, it's called grids and levels, right? And they're great, and you can manipulate those, you can use those as they are, but I'm going to show you how to create a new one. So in ours, in our floor plan, I'm going to create, using the view tab, scope box, and before I place it, I'm going to call it Mies BP, so Mies Barcelona Pavilion. Okay, and then as best as I can, I'm going to go maybe like 5 feet outside the building perimeter, and then that is my scope box. Okay, now when I crop this view, because it's currently cropped, when I crop the view around my scope box, everything else outside of that box will disappear, right? So what do I mean by that? Okay, well, remember, just double check, it's Mies BP. In the property box for this view, I can scroll down and you'll notice under extents, there is a box that's called scope box, and right now it's none. I'm going to change that to MEAS BP, which is the one we selected, and I'm going to hit apply, and notice it cropped everything out. That's exactly what we wanted it to do. Okay. The other thing is, you notice that under the extents it says crop region visible. That's also this little light bulb that's turned on down here. I actually don't want that, so I'm going to turn that off. And then now all you're seeing is the topo solid and the grid lines and all that good stuff. All right. For our purposes, I do not want the topo solid to show in this floor plan. So I'm going to turn that off, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But before I do that, because I cropped my view, I want to see this plan larger. I can scroll in, but I'll remind you that there is a keyboard shortcut for that, and it is ZE, letter Z, letter E in quick succession. So ZE, and that stands for zoom extents, which is what it just did, and it zooms to the extents of the scope box. Now, I can select the topo solid and then right click and hide in view by element and category. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is using the visibility graphic dialog box. So you type VG or VV either in quick succession, and this box pops up. Or you can use the button under the View tab, which is Visibility Graphics, same box, same information. So while we're here, I'm going to scroll down and turn off Topo Solid because we made that in the last video, and I don't need that for the purposes of today's discussion. So there is just the architecture, just the floor plan. The next thing I want to show you is how to manipulate and control the graphics of this floor plan. And one thing I advocate on behalf of my students or ask my students to do is I honestly want them to poche the walls because we just want the walls to pop out. We don't want the line work to get lost. And so it's for an architectural floor plan, we poche the walls. For a construction document, we would not poche the walls. Instead, we would show the interior makeup of those walls. But for our purposes, we're going to poche. So I'm going to ask you to VV one more time, and then this is a slightly different process I don't think I've shown you before. You're going to select everything, so control, or sorry, not control, select all, and then under projection surface, skip past that and go to cut, skip past lines, go to patterns, and it doesn't really matter which family type you select. I'm going to choose ceilings, even though I don't have any, and choose pattern, solid, color. I like the color red. You can use whatever color you want. But red pops off the page, so hit red, apply, and OK. Now, everything that is a solid object, or everything that is being cut through, is highlighted in red, right? So that's being highlighted in red. The cruciform cross shapes that we saw, the mullions in the curtain walls, the freeform model walls that we did, the regular walls that we did, the Revit walls. And then you're probably like, well, wait a minute. These walls aren't pocheted. That's because they're not walls by definition. They are what I don't have shown are the structural tube columns marching down the interior, but what is shown is the travertine marble panels, and those things are being cut through. So there's actually it's a gap, that's an air gap there. That's why you're not seeing anything there. And it's also the way we constructed it using freeform mass. So that's okay. It's not a mistake that those aren't highlighted red and everything else is, or everything that's being cut is. Reminder for those who aren't familiar, floor plans are truthfully sections. They're horizontal sections instead of vertical sections. So when I say cut, what I mean is Revit is cutting this model at 3 feet above the first level, or level one, or the first floor, if that's how you're oriented. But that's the section, so that's what's being cut. And so for architectural presentation plans, we like those cuts to be pocheted. In this case, I'm using red to highlight that. The next thing I want to show you how to do is to put back the graphics that aren't necessarily important for this image. And in this case, the grid lines are super bold, and they're getting, at least for me, they're confusing the line work of the architecture. So what I'm going to show you is how to select all the lines with just one click and gray tone or half tone them. So I'm going to just choose any one of these at random, right click, override graphics and view by category, not by element. This is important. If you just did element, it would only do that one. But if you did category, it's going to select all grid lines. Right click and then click halftone, hit apply and OK. And notice they all went halftone. That's exactly what I wanted to happen. The next thing I want to show you is how to dimension and annotate a floor plan. And this class is not focused on construction documentation and annotations in that regard, but I just want to introduce to you how this is done. And so that when this becomes something you have to do either professionally or for your classes, you will have already been exposed to it, right? And so what I'm going to convey to you, or what I believe to be best practices for dimensioning. Every architect has what they think is the best way of doing it. And in truth, the people who should probably be telling us are the contractors, since they're the ones building from our dimensions. But here's what I have always been taught, and this is what I do. I start with the largest dimension and make that the furthest away. And then as elements become closer together, the dimension string becomes closer. Okay, so here, let's start with the farthest dimension. And I'm just using the quick start dimension. You could also go to annotate and align, which is the same one. And I'm going to highlight this edge of that panel. And I'm going to go all the way to the edge of that panel and pull it up. And there we go. Now, one thing I want you to pay attention to is the dimension string shows a dimension of 179.5.5. I am confident I didn't draw to that level of specificity. So I want to make sure, or I want to understand if it is rounding and what it's rounding to. The way I do that is I select the dimension string and I want to edit the type property, and I want to scroll down and I'm looking for this units format and see where it says 1 inch equals 5.5 default. I want to click that, and what it's telling me is it's using the project settings. And in the project settings, it is rounding to the nearest half inch. That's okay for me, so I'm going to leave that. If you have something different, I'm going to show you where to find the project settings. So go to Manage, Project Units, and under Length, you'll see the same information we just saw. I'm going to change that value just to show you what I mean, how this works. I'm going to change it to the nearest inch because I don't really care about half inches for this purpose. But in constructability, most good contractors can get down to 1/8 of an inch in tolerance. So we would probably dimension to 1/8 of an inch, but I think every firm has an attitude about that too. So, whatever firm you're working for, just ask for their guidance. All right, so hit OK again, and now we're at whole numbers 179.5. All right, now, so that's the largest dimension. For my students, I'm going to ask you to dimension all 4 sides. For those just at home and trying to learn, you don't have to do that. I just want them to demonstrate that they understand how this works. All right, so next big dimensions would be this edge to this edge, this edge to this edge, that edge, maybe that edge, and then this edge would close off the dimension. But because I don't want to close dimensions because I'm rounding up, it might create an error between real and rounded math. And I don't want a contractor calling me and say, well, this dimension says this and that dimension says that. Which one's accurate, right? So in order to solve that, I just leave one dimension open-ended, and then I don't have to worry about the contractor bugging me with that. Now, the next thing I'll tell you is we do have grid lines. You should always dimension to a grid line. So notice I dimensioned to those edges. I'm going to come back and add a dimension at the grid line and see how it creates the intermediate values. That's exactly what I wanted. And then it also snaps to the closest dimension out there. So that's good. All right. I have document, at least on this north face, I have dimensioned everything I want to dimension. I'm going to do the west face. And again, for my students, I'm going to ask you to do the south and the east faces. But for everyone else, that's totally your prerogative. All right, so I want that horizontal surface. I want this horizontal surface. and then maybe just that little bit of plinth, and I pull that out, and then that's the larger dimensions. And then I'm going to come back and do this little edge of wall to edge of actually center of storefront, and then maybe one more dimension to the edge of pool, and then that's it. I do have column lines or grid lines, but these columns are way down here. There's none down here. So I wouldn't dimension to those in these strings. On this side of the building, I actually absolutely would, but on this side, I'm not. So as far as dimensioning goes, I've shown you what I wanted to show you. We're good there. Now, the next thing I want to show you is annotations. I am a huge fan of using keynotes, especially for repetitive information. But in this case, we're just using what I would call dumb notes. And I actually do have a video in my YouTube channel. So if you look at the Revit playlist, you'll find one for keynotes and to explain how those things work. But in this case, we're just using dumb notes. So the first thing I want to show you is just a dumb text block. And so just click, anywhere you want. I'm going to call it Mies Barcelona Pavilion. So I'm just labeling the project, right? Mies Barcelona Pavilion. So that's just a dumb text block. There's you know, it. I don't think it has spell check actually. Actually, there it is right there. So you can spell check, and it's going to ask, what is that? What words are these? I don't need that for what we're doing. The next thing I want to show you is a specific call out, right? And so this guy is a 2-segment. You have a straight line, you have a curved leader. I like the 2 segments personally. So I'm going to click this wall. That's the start of the first. Oops, did I not? Oh, I didn't click it. There we go. This is the start of the line. So what it's pointing to. So I drag out my leader, and then there's my second leader, and then I'm going to name it, whatever this thing is. So this is a freestanding travertine wall. Okay, so I'm just trying to give the contractor clues as to what it is that the graphics are representing, and so that when he digs in further with sections and wall sections or whatever, he'll get more information, or he or she. So this is a simple annotation. For my students, I'm going to ask you to do 5 of these, any 5 you want, but label 5 things. Again, for people at home, you don't have to do that. All right, so we're almost done with the floor plan. I'm now going to show you how to create reference views. Reference views are section lines, elevation markers, that kind of thing. And for my students, I'm asking them to do 1 longitudinal section of the pavilion, 1 transverse section of the pavilion, and then all 4 elevations. So let's set that up. All right, now where do I find those? If I look at the tabs available to me, intuitively, those are views, right? So I'm looking for a view tab. There it is. And then in the view tab, I know there's a section, so I'm going to start with section, right? Sections are super easy, in my opinion, and they start out by clicking one time and dragging the direction you want to cut through. In this case, this is my longitudinal section, so I'm moving down the long axis of the project. And then I click a second time, and it has created a digital cut. Now, this dotted line represents the extents of that cut, so everything beyond it you wouldn't see. We don't have anything beyond this, so it's not that big of a deal. But I'm just for my own OCD-ness, I'm pulling that in. Now, the other thing I want to show you is this is probably the most interesting section, but I can also flip that. I can mirror it the other direction and look the other direction if I wanted to. But I don't think I need that, so I'm going to put it back, and this is what I want. Okay. Now, the other thing I will tell you about sections, or anything in Revit actually, that is blue, that means you can interact with it. So in this case, the blue represents a hyperlink. So if I double click on that blue, it takes me to that section, right? I think that's super important to note, and it is a very fast way to navigate the model without having necessarily to use your browser. So I think that's helpful. But if you wanted to use your browser, you could scroll down and see sections, open it up, and this is the first section. While we're here, I'm going to rename that with a right click. So I right clicked on the name. I'm going to call it long section. That's short for longitudinal section. And then I'm going to go back to my floor plan, and I'm going to cut the next section this way. I'm going to go right through the center of this this pad. So section marker, drag down, and then you see what it did again. It's looking to the right. It's cutting and looking to the right. And that's the section I want. But again, I can, using this toggle, I can flip the other direction if I wanted to. It's actually a pretty nice feature. So same thing. I'm going to, in the browser, I'm going to right click on the name and rename it transverse section. Okay, so now both of those things are named. Now, notice that in the floor plan, I've pochade the walls. When I double click on the section, nothing is pochade, and that's by design. So I'm going to show you is the same technique, but just in sections. So VV, visibility graphics, select all. And actually, I don't want to select everything. I don't want topo solid selected. So I'm going to unselect that by holding down Control, and unselect topo solid, and then everything else is still selected. Choose any family you want, it doesn't really matter. And then choose solid fill and red, just like we did with the floor plans. And now what will happen is everything that's being cut, except for the topo solid, will be highlighted in red. That's exactly what I wanted. I'm also going to orient this this view to the same section box I created in plan so that they're related. So there's the scope box. Select that, choose Mies BP, and hit go. Oh, wait a minute, what happened? Well, when I placed the scope box, it is a three-dimensional element. When I placed it in floor plan, it assumed, right? So here's my floor plan. It assumed that I wanted the start of this three-dimensional object to start at level 1. If you remember when we made this pavilion, we made the the plinth grow down instead of up. So in truth, the scope box should have started at -3 feet. So how do we fix that? Well, we go back to 3D without touching the elevation view, sectional view. We go back to 3D, we choose our front view, and we see this is the scope box we're talking about. Notice where the cutoff line is, right? So the bottom of it is at 0. I want that to be at -3, so I'm going to pull that down to about here. It doesn't have to be exact. So now it should be cutting through the slab, the plinth and this topo solid. And then I'm going to pull the top down. I have no real reason to do this other than, again, my OCD. So I'm pulling the top down. And then now when I go back to my section, which is open in a tab, you'll see that it did exactly, right? It's exactly aligned. Let me double check that, right? Mies BP. So it's exactly aligned with the section we have in BP in the floor plan, and the heights are similar to what you just modeled in 3D. So that's really, really cool feature, I think. And then I don't necessarily want the bounding box or the crop view, so I'm going to turn that off, and then I have a much cleaner view. Now, same thing I did in floor plan. I don't necessarily need the grid lines to be highlighted or so bold, so I'm going to right-click on those, override graphics by category, halftone it, apply, okay, and they go away. Not they go away, but they get lighter. Now, elevations and sections are really, really useful for indicating vertical heights of things. Those are really hard to do in floor plans. So this is where we do that, right? And we do have level lines that generate heights of things. So for example, I'm going to use this level line to indicate the depth of this pool, which is largely just a reflecting pool, and then the height between level 1. So there's that 9 feet. And we know that the bottom of the roof is at least as we've modeled it, is at 9 feet. So that's all making sense. And then over here, I'm going to use the level line to establish the height of that bench and the height of that door. And I'm going to pull those over here. and this is probably the best time. Actually, you know what? I don't like that. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to dimension the bench separately from the door. So that's 1'6", and then door at 7'0", right? 7'0". Okay. Now this is a nice time to show you some of the tools within the dimension strings. That text is being buried. So if I just click this little dot and hold, left click and hold and drag out, I can move the text and it creates a leader so that you understand it's connected to that dimension string. So that's really, really helpful. And that's all I'm going to do as far as, and I'm typing ZE to get zoom extents. That's all I'm going to do to manipulate the sections. I want to do the exact same thing to the transverse. So let me jump over there. And then again, I want this to be by scope box, MES BP. I want the region to be off, right? And then I'm going to do VV to select everything, hit Control to unselect topo solid, and then override the pattern to be solid and the color to be red. And what I should end up with is a similar section style to the longitudinal. And then I'm going to, again, right click and override graphics by category, the columns to halftone. And now stylistically, this section should be very similar to that one. Obviously, they're cutting different parts of the building, so you get different information, but stylistically, they're similar. Okay. All right. So that's really, I think that's pretty well done. Go back to the floor plan. Now we're going to place elevation views, right? So if you go to the view, and the hint was in the name, you're looking for elevation marker. Sorry, I was taking a quick drink of tea. All right, here is our elevation marker, and my choices are framing elevation or elevation. I want elevation. And I'm going to simply drag this in and move it around the plan. Now, if you have Revit walls, the elevation marker will, by magnetic feel, try to snap to a wall, right? See how it's bouncing around between up, down, left, right, whatever, because it's looking at those storefronts. So it's naturally wanting to do that. But all of these things we made with freeform models, so it's less interested in making a direct connection. So I'm going to show you how you fix that. All right, so I want this marker to actually be right here, but I don't want it pointing that way, so I'm going to select the circle. The circle. Wait a minute. Yeah, select the circle, and then hit this little rotate and pull it down, and now it's looking the way I want it to look. I'm going to select the arrow and notice what is in the scope, right? So if it's an elevation view, I want to get all of this stuff, and then I want the extents of it to cover the whole model, right? So I'm going to pull those things out, and then now this elevation view should be that elevation where that elevation line is, right? So double click, that's the north elevation. It looks exactly like I want it to. I'm going to again use the scope box from MES BP, and then and turn that off as far as hide the crop view. Right click, override graphics by category, halftone grid lines, and then there we go. I have everything I need for that elevation. I'm going to do that 3 more times. So I'm going to do that for the south elevation, the east and the west elevations, and then I will be done. I'm going to ask my students to do the same thing. For those following at home, obviously you don't have to do that. All right, so this is my next elevation marker. I'm going to get as close as I can to that. I'm going to click the arrow just to make sure it gives me everything I want to see. Pull it all the way through. Go to my next elevation marker. Click the marker again, or the angle, I should say, the directional arrow. And then the last one will be this guy. Then this one I need to rotate. So select that button, rotate again. It should snap. It did. I want to go to the extents. So pull that out a little bit and then pull that all the way through. Now I have all my elevations. Now they aren't necessarily labeled correctly, northeast, southwest. So I'm going to do that very quickly. And notice they're just 1, 2, 3, 4. If you remember the sequence in which you drew them, you could do it that way. I am going to select it. Let me say it differently. Yeah, select it. Okay, let's try it differently. Right click on it and hit, where is this? It should be showing me in the plan, show view placement on streets. No, not that. It should show me where this is actually lives in the plan, like it should highlight it. I'm not quite sure why it's not doing that. No big deal. I can simply double click on it and now it is highlighted, right? Right click on it now and I know that that's north elevation, right? Because I clicked on it in the plan. I know it's north elevation. Similarly, same thing. It's a hyperlink. Double click on it and rename that. Rename that south elevation. Now, something I just as you're renaming these or going through that process, also take the time to resize and change all the parameters of the things that you want it to look like, right? So in this case, I want this to be, again, scope box meets BP, turn the crop region visible off, right click the grid lines and override those graphics by category to halftone. And then this should be very similar to the north elevation, which it is. So Bob's your uncle. Go back to the floor plan and do the same thing for the west elevation, relabel it. Now, I will tell you there is much more efficient and faster ways to doing what I'm doing. But this is, again, Revit 101. So this is not all the tips and tricks. It's just the introduction of how this software works. So you will find faster ways to do what I'm doing as you navigate the software in the future. All right, so now I have north, south, west. I already know this one by process of elimination to be east. So I'm going to label that one east elevation. And then I'm going to double click it because it's still not set up correctly the way the other ones are. Scope box, crop view off, right click, override graphic by category, halftone, bing. Okay, now in these sections, I don't think anywhere I've dimensioned this window because it really only shows up in elevation. It doesn't show up in section or floor plan. So I need to dimension quickly this window. And how I do that, use the quick dimension tool. Go ahead and save your project. Whenever it asks you, you should go ahead and do it. I'm going to dimension from the column line because that's how they should be building this. And I'm going to mention to the furthest or the closest extent, the furthest extent, and I'm going to drag that up. Now that's the horizontal placement of the window. Now I need the vertical placement. So from either 1 or 0, probably 0, meaning level 1, I'm going to come up to the first point of the window or the sill, and then I'm going to come up to the head of the window and pull that dimension string over here. And now you have the vertical dimension, you have the horizontal dimension. They can accurately and adequately place that window. So very, very good. All right, let's go back to the floor plan one more time. I think we have all of our elevations. We have all of our sections. What is missing? Oh, that's right. There is a graphic convention within architecture where things that are not in the current view but are significant to the floor plan need to be shown, i.e., in this case, the roof line outlines, roof overhead lines should be drawn, but they're not. I don't see the roofs. How do I do that? There is a tool for that. Or there used to be a funny commercial where they say there's an app for that. So there's an app for that. Anyway, so in this property box for this view, we're going to scroll down just a little bit and you'll see something called underlay. This is exactly like you think it is, like we did in school. You would lay your piece of trace over, you would trace over it, pull the trace off, and then now you would have it. Well, as an underlay, not an overlay, right? So we're going to change that underlay from none to level 2, and you should see now our roofs. Now this is the first time I think I've introduced this philosophical content, or not philosophical, this technical content. Everything we've up to now has been modeled except for the dimensions. The dimensions and the annotations are view specific. They would not exist in any other view. So for example, if I were to click on architectural, no dimensions, no annotations. So those are specific to this floor plan. Same thing with the poche, right? It's all view specific. It's also true with what I'm about to show you. So that you see the roofs, right? I'm going to use annotate detail lines, and I'm going to trace the roofs using the overhead line type that comes out of Revit. I'm going to snap to the roof extents over there, and then I'm going to snap to the roof extents over here, and now I have my roof overhead lines drawn. I'm going to turn off my underlay currently to none. And now what you're left with is the line work that I drew. And again, this line work is specific to the model, but is hyper specific to this view. It will not show up in any other view. So that's a really important thing to make note of. All right, so we have the floor plan well documented as far as dimensions, annotations, detail line work. We have all of our sections, all of our elevations, and I think that they're all graphically consistent. I think we edited all of them, so that's good. We have two sections, a long section and a transverse section. Those are graphically edited, or are consistent. So I think we're almost done. I want to show you three more things, or sorry, two more things, but three more views. The first next thing I want to show you is the notion of a sectional axonometric view. And that's really easily achieved. If you go to a 3D view, any 3D view, and choose the preset corners of the box. So this is an axonometric view, right? Or isometric if you want to get technical, because the angles, I think, are similar. So I think that's a 30, or sorry. Actually, that might be a 30-45. I'm not quite sure. Or a 30-60, I mean. It doesn't really matter. But so this is a axonometric view of the project. Within the property box for this view, there's under scope box, which we could do. There's also another one called section box. Click that, and what you'll see is this big bounding box that with the toggles, right? So I can pull things in, down, up, left, right, etc. I'm going to pull this one in to right about here, and now I'm cutting through the building, cutting through the topo solid, cutting through the walls, the roof, everything, right? So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna pull this one in just a little bit, maybe about here, pull the back in a little bit just to clean up this model so it's not so big when we place it on a sheet, and then pull it down again. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now we have a sectional graphic for this axonometric. Let's play with the views a little bit. I actually want this to be hidden line, so that's this visual style. I want shadows to be on, so I'm going to turn those on. And then I want, just like we did with the sections, everything that's architecturally being cut through to be highlighted. So we do that with VV, and we're going to turn on, select all, and then using the control button, unselect topo solid. The things that are still selected, you choose solid fill, color red, just like we did in the sections in the plan. Hit apply and OK, and now everything being cut is highlighted in red. That's brilliant. I'm also going to use VV one more time and turn off the entire annotation category. I don't want any of that stuff showing up. And what's left is this really beautiful black and white drawing with shadows and color red for things being sectioned. All right, so there's one view, or one thing that we want. The next thing we want is camera views, like perspective. So the last one was an orthographic view. It was three-dimensional, but it was orthographic. Now I want to show you how to make perspective views. And in my opinion, Revit is one of the best at making perspective views. They're way easier to do than Rhino, little easier to do than SketchUp, I think. Revit is really good at this, in my opinion. So you go to View, just like we have for all the other ones. You go to 3D View, and your choices are Default 3D View, which is isometric, Walkthrough, which is not part of this class or exercise, but that's how you make animations, and then Camera. And Camera is what it sounds like, right? You have a camera, you place it somewhere in the floor plan, and that's the camera location, and that's your first click. Your second click is the direction you're looking, right? And then this is what we got. So this is our first view. Now, this is a Compton thing. I'm sure everyone who uses Revit perspectives does this differently, but these are the things I'm going to show you right now are presets that I like for using perspectives in Revit, because it changes in one motion. It changes the amount of information I see and the field of view or the camera angle. For the photography nerds, from going from a narrow angle to a wide angle, more like architectural photography. So I do that with this process. I change the size crop from 6x4, which is like a 4x6 photograph, to 16:9, which is more like a not letterbox, a widescreen monitor, right? So 16:9. I do not change to scale. I change field of view, hit apply and OK, and then I'm going to ZE for zoom extents, and you now see a forced perspective, which is a wider angle of the architecture. Now, I'm not done yet with this particular view because I want to change and tweak this a little bit. So I'm going to choose my navigation wheel, pull that over, left click and pull, and I'm going to use the look. So I'm hovering over the different buttons. I'm going to left click and hold look, and I'm just going to look around the model from my vantage point. I think this is the view that I want, but notice that I feel like I'm floating, right? There's no architecture below me. I need to make sure that I am on, my eye level is 5'6", but I need to make sure I'm, again, on the ground, not floating in the air. So I scroll down the properties box. Look, my eye level is 5'6", but relative to level 1, which is 3 foot above the ground. So I'm going to change that to 2'6", which will keep my eye level still at 5'6", but lower my whole body down to be on the ground. And now I'm ready to walk up the steps. This is my first view and what I'm calling my entry view. So I'm going to relabel it entry view, and then that'll be my first one. The other thing before I leave here is I'm going to VV turn off annotation because I don't want to see any of that stuff. Cleans it up a little bit, and I'm also going to turn on shadows, although that's in dark shadow, so maybe I don't want to leave that on. We'll see. All right, so there's that one. All right, now go back to floor plan. So that's my entry view. I'm going to, and what I like to do, at least with my architecture, is I'm going to show you where I came from. I'm showing you where I'm going and where I came from. So my second view will be the opposite corner in direction. So I'm going to be over here. That's where it's going to stay. And I'm going to look in this direction. And then similar process, 16:9. Apply it OK. ZE for zoom extents. I'm under the roof, looking past the stools at the storefront, and just see a little bit of this edge in the reflecting pool, right? VV, I'm going to turn off all the annotation stuff, which I don't need, and then I'm going to turn on shadows. I'm in shadow, so that's great. I now have my views. Now, I would take this time to save because the next piece of this video is about how to create sheets. Now I have, again, for my students, I have supplemental instruction. For those at home, I have, those not in my class, I should say, I have a Revit playlist on my YouTube channel, which you're watching from right now. And in that Revit playlist, there is just a video entirely on sheets and how to create them, how to edit them. So because you have access to that, I'm not gonna spell out every last detail. So for my students, you can either rewatch this several times or you can play that supplemental video. But I'm going to show you very quickly how to make a custom sheet not the one that comes out of the box, and how to place the views. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we click Sheet. It's going to ask you what kind of sheet you want. Not what kind, what size. Okay, so I'm going to use E1 30 by 42 horizontal. Hit OK, and when you see this normally, let me change this to something so you'll see it normally. You're going to have all this stuff, right? You're going to have the revision blocks. You're going to have client name, project name. This is what will come with it. I have already edited this to just be the sheet name. And I'm going to show you how I did that. So I clicked the frame where it's highlighted blue, hit edit family, and I just started deleting things. I deleted everything except for the sheet name. What I think I now want to do is, instead of sheet name, I'm going to change that to, I'm going to edit the label to, instead of saying sheet name, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to call it, I want to see if it has a view name. So let's see if we can find that. It may not be here, but let me see. So project name number, scale, sheet collection, sheet date, sheet number, sheet name, scale. Yeah, I don't see it. Maybe you can't do that. So I might have to put that back. Um, yeah, I don't see it. So maybe what we'll do instead is, instead of sheet name or sheet number, because that's going to be redundant, I'm going to use project name and put that there, and then load that back into the project. So the project name will be here. And this is the time where you can add graphics, right? So if I wanted like stylistically, if I wanted a line that was coming from, the project name or whatever, this is where you add that kind of stuff. So load it to project. Do you want to save? If you don't already have templates, you might want to save it. Otherwise, you hit no, and it's just going to overwrite the parameters within the project. Within the project you're working on. I'm going to call this Mies Barcelona Pavilion. Oh, I don't like that it's stacking. I'm going to have to fix that. So let me go back to edit family. I'm going to pull this out this way. And that means that will keep it from stacking. All right. Hit OK. Overwrite. Brilliant. All right. All right, so I need better control of this. I need to, instead of the label being centered, I want that to be right adjusted like that. And then I'll leave that line where it is. Hit no, hit apply. There we go. That's what I want it to look like. So there we go. So this is a presentation sheet. Again, if you wanted a construction documentation sheet, there's a bunch of those come with Revit. You can edit the Autodesk to put in your own logo and all that stuff. But for what we're doing, which is presentation drawings, this is what I wanted to say. Okay, now how do you populate? And there's, again, 500 ways of doing any one thing. I'm going to show you my preferred method. So this will be my first sheet. Oh, PS, let me scroll down in the project browser and see where it is. I had already labeled this one time, so it's just continuation of that label, but I'm going to rename it just so we're all on the same page. So this is called Presentation 01. Sheet name doesn't really matter because the view will be the label. So we call it Presentation 01. Okay. And now in this sheet, I'm going to start with a floor plan. Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm going to start with our 3D axo. So our 3D section. So I'm going to go to the 3D view. I think it's this one. I should have labeled it and I didn't. And then there it is. And it's telling me what it is, but I'm going to label it right now. So I'm calling it axonometric section, right? So there's that. And actually, this could get bigger, I think. So I'm going to change the scale of this to 3/16. Yeah, that's better. And this will serve largely as my, what do you want to call it? This is my title page or my cover sheet. So there's my first sheet. Okay, and a ZE zoom extends to blow it up. I think that's really attractive. I like that. So I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to create a new sheet. Right. So same thing, and notice that it automatically went to Prezo 2. Perfect for, I don't have to relabel it. I'm going to change now. I'm going to choose my floor plan. That's this guy. And I think what we just learned with the EXO is this is not enough. The size is not big enough. So we're going to change that in the browser without having to recreate the floor plan. That's one of the powers of Revit. It's super flexible in that way. Um, Yeah, there we go. That's beautiful. Okay, and then so I just nudged the floor plan forward and backward to get it where I wanted it to be. You could drag it and manipulate it that way, and then it's already labeled correctly, so I don't have to change that. I'm just gonna shorten this the extension line a little bit. So you do that by selecting the view. Then the extension line becomes, you'll see the little two dots that you can manipulate, and you just click and drag that little dot to get it where you want to go. All right, so now I have my floor plan. I'm going to do a new sheet, and it should be sequentially accurate. It is. And then now I think what we're doing is elevations. So I'm going to list, and I'm a Boy Scout, so I'm going to list the elevations by never eat soggy waffles or northeast, southwest. Now, I already know this is going to happen, but I'm going to use it as an educational moment. I'm going to line up this one. Again, it's the wrong size. I'm going to line, but I'm just going to bring them all in. So there's east, south, and west, and I'm doing that holding down the shift button, and I just click, and notice it already predicted a sort of layout for me. I don't love that, so I'm going to drag this down here. I'm going to drag this up here, and then there we go. But the other thing I don't love is they're all the wrong size. So I'm going to select all of them at once, change all of their sizes at once, and then now I have what I want. But how do I line them up? Because they're not really lined up, right? Now, what you could do is if you move this, it will snap to the views, the view titles, I should say, and those are about the same distance, right? So the building edge, so they're about the same distance. That's probably enough, but you could do something else. And so there's this guy. The vertical things, if you put two vertical things in the same plane, they will snap to the center of the model. That's what just happened there. And then similarly, you can drag this guy over a little bit. But I think this is a pretty good layout, actually. So you have what this is: north, south, east, west and east. If I really wanted to be funny about it, I would flip those around. So I have north, south, east, west instead of north, south, west, east, but it doesn't really matter. Just nudge that in a little bit. Okay, so we have elevations. I don't have any shadows. And I don't remember if I wanted shadows on my elevations or not, but let's try something. I'm selecting all of them. I'm scrolling down. I don't think I can turn on shadows as a group. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think I can do that as a group, so I might have to do that individually, which is okay. So let me open those individually and see if I want shadows. All right, so there's east. Yeah, okay, it's not hurting. North shouldn't have anything. Oh wait, what is this? That's north. Why do we have shadows on the north? Oh, okay. I have some questions. South, west. There we go. All right, so now I have shadows. If I close each individual thing, then you see how they showed up on the sheet. I didn't have to repopulate the sheet. All right, and then I'm going to do one more sheet. Actually, probably two more, not one more. Same one. This one will be our sections. So scroll down alphabetically to section. Start with transverse, and then add The next one, which is longitudinal, and again, these need to be the same scale, or they should be anyway. So 3/16. Let's see, drag, I had them both selected. I just like the bigger one on top. And I'm nudging these down. Okay, good. So when I say nudging, what I mean is I have them selected and I'm hitting the up and down arrows on my keyboard. That's a nudge. If I hit the shift and then up and down, it's a bigger nudge. So just I guess a fun fact. Yeah, the dimensions are still there. All right, so I now have cover page. I have a floor plan. I have elevations. I have sections. Now I need my perspectives. So one more sheet. And then I'll add these two views. This one isn't labeled. I'll have to fix that. And then the next view is entry view. So that one's actually going to go on top. And this one will go down bottom. Now, something I'm noticing is the sheet size is 30 by 42, but these are only 9 inches high. So I wonder if I can change them both at the same time. It doesn't look like I can. Okay, so I have to change one each individually. So I'm going to do size crop, but instead of field of view, I'm going to change it to scale. And I'm going to change my height to be 14 inches. And that should change the width automatically. It did. Excellent. And then I'm going to left adjust that image to that. I'm going to do the exact same thing. So scale 14 inches. Oh, wait, that didn't, what happened? Scale 14 inches. There we go. Apply OK. Now, these will snap if you move them, if you want them to. So I'm going to snap up to that corner and then change both of these to just title only, no lines. I'm going to move that title over here and then move that title over here. And this one says entry view, that's good. This one says 3D view, that's bad. So select, in order to change that, you select the image or the view first, and then you click on the text block, and that should say exit view, because entry view was first. And then there we go. Actually, you know what? I'd love to give this a little space, a little white space, never hurt you. ZE. Okay, there we go. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sheets. I'm going to save one more time, and I'm going to show you what is a fairly new to me. And a reminder, I've been using Revit since 2003. So when I say, oh, they made this change, this is the first time you're using Revit, so you don't understand or appreciate the change. But this is new to me. They have a PDF feature. So what you used to have to do is print a PDF. So you had to print a bunch of sheets and using a PDF driver. Now you can make native PDFs, which are super nice. So here's how you do that. The first thing it asks you is what are you going to PDF? Current window, which is the sheet, visible portion of the current window, or selected sheets. We're going to choose that option. And then we don't want all of these sheets, so we're going to check none. But as soon as we do that, they all went away because of this checkbox. We're going to uncheck that. And then these are all the presets that come with Revit. We don't need all those. These are only the things we want. So we're going to choose sheets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's these 5. Hit select. It says, do you want to save this for future in case you print later? Normally you would say yes. I'm going to hit no. Then it says, well, what do you want to save this as, and where do you want to save it? So I'm going to change the name of it to be Mies BP Drawings, right? And I'm going to put it in my downloads folder so I can come back to it later. Now, the next thing it's asking is what size is it? And I want to use a sheet size, which is a 30 by 42 sheet. I do not want it to fit the page because I have things at scale. So I'm going to choose zoom to 100%. And then everything else I'm going to leave exactly like it is. And I'm going to hit export. It says, do you want to save settings in the future? Normally you'd say yes. I'm going to say no. And it's going to chunk on that for a minute. While that's doing that, and there's a little indicator at the bottom left-hand corner that tells you it's processed. So it's at 24%, now 25. While it's doing that, I'm going to come back to my files and look for it. And there's one I made earlier. I'm going to delete that one. But here is the one we just made, so it's done. And I don't know if you heard it, but the Revit gave me a little ding. It gave me a note about raster processing. But here is my file. So it's called Mies BP Drawings. That's what I label it. It's a little over 6 megs. I double click on it and we'll see what we see. So this is the cover page, which is what we intended. I'm going to try to do page down on this keyboard, which is not working. Yeah, it's not working. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll like a commoner. So that is the floor plan that we laid out. I think that looks really clean, really good. These are our elevation views, pretty good. These are our section views, pretty good. And then these are our perspectives, pretty good. All right, so what we've learned this evening anyway, is how to manipulate views within Revit, how to add those views to sheets, and how to create PDFs. That's the extent of what I was hoping to achieve with this video. In the next video in this series and for my class, we're going to take these Revit models and we're going to export them to AI for rendering. And then I'm also going to introduce the notion of post-production processing. In other words, whatever you get out of the AI isn't done still. There's still some editing that needs to be done, like the introduction of people and entourage and whatnot. So I'm going to show you how to do post-production processing in a Photoshop-like software. It's freeware online. And so anyway, I will show you that in the next video. But thanks for now.